Hello, all of you. I'm using this video to express some serious concerns I personally feel about the use of the Constitution of India to deal with matters of criminal law. A few cases in the recent past few weeks specifically highlight a critical problem regarding the use of constitutional remedies to enforce the rights regulated by criminal laws like the Criminal Procedure Code 1973. I'm specifically referring to the two rounds of litigation already completed by Arnab Goswami before the Supreme Court under Article 32, as well as the Article 32 petition filed and litigated by Prashant Bhushan very recently. Now, both of them have filed their respective writ petitions for similar purposes. FIRs were filed against these two for different offenses in different circumstances and different transactions. And both of them wanted protection from arrest that may have ensued because of these FIRs. They also wanted to get these FIRs quashed. All right. That means there can't be any more legal proceedings against them in that particular facts scenario. In this video, I will brief you as to why I think Arnab and Prashant Bhushan ought not to have invoked Article 32 for these remedies, and why the Supreme Court equally should not have entertained their writ petitions, as there are certain specific and effective remedies laid down in the Criminal Procedure Code itself for these particular requests and prayers that they were asking for. Now, I'll specifically talk about Arnab's two separate writ petitions, and then I'll come to Prashant Bhushan. So, talking about Arnab's first writ petition under Article 32 in the recent past was, I think, now all of you would know about how several FIRs were filed against Mr. Arnab Goswami in the police stations of several states like Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, and mostly by several Congress party workers accusing Arnab of causing incitement of violence on the basis of religious grounds. Through his primetime news show on April 21st on the Palgad lynching incident. So, to get these FIRs quashed and to get immediate protection from arrest that may come because of these FIRs, Arnab Goswami filed a Article 32 petition before the Supreme Court. Senior advocate Mukul Rohatgi had represented him in that petition. If you all have seen and read, Gautam Kazanji, a practitioner of criminal law in Delhi circuit, he has written a fine piece on live law, and his article is titled "The First Among Equals." In this piece, Gautam has a hard-hitting take on the procedural aspects about filing of petitions and listing of petitions in light of Arnab Goswami's case, because Arnab had filed this writ petition on April 23rd at 8 p.m. before the Supreme Court registry, and the same was listed for hearing on the next day at 10:30 or 11:30 a.m. as one of the earliest matters in the entire cost list for that particular day. So Gautam has an interesting piece on those procedural aspects of filing and registering. So I would urge you to sort of read that to get a real sense of the procedural aspects. In this video, I'll focus on some of the substantive aspects about the jurisdiction under the CRPC as well as the Constitution with respect to these cases. So, as I said, Arnab had filed this petition to ask for, to argue that no coercive action should be taken against him because of these multiple FIRs that were filed against him. Accordingly, on April 24th itself, on the same day, an interim order was passed by the Supreme Court, a division bench consisting of Justice Dhananjay Chandrachud and Justice M.R. Shah. The Supreme Court did a very fascinating, sort of created a fascinating order where they said they were not quashing all the FIRs against Arnab. Instead, they stayed all the FIRs against Arnab in all the other states, except for this one FIR filed in the Nagpur police station in Maharashtra itself. Further, the court also transferred that FIR filed in Nagpur to a police station in Mumbai, right? This is how considerate, right? So you have given that protection to the petitioner from not being harassed by traveling all the way from Bombay to Nagpur for every instance of the investigation and interrogation that may ensue thereafter. Plus, On top of this, the interim order gave Arnab Goswami 3 weeks of protection from any coercive action of the police. Essentially, in this context, is the coercive action is arrest. So 3 weeks of protection from arrest was given so that he could get an anticipatory bail from the respective court, which would be the Bombay High Court or the jurisdictional sessions court in Bombay, right? The court never asked him any questions that usually the courts have always asked in other cases, other similar cases. Why did you not go to the lower courts if you have already an effective remedy under the constitution? The effective remedy in this case is section 438 of the CRPC, the Criminal Procedure Code. 438 allows any person to file an application for anticipatory bail if they have a reasonable apprehension that an arrest may happen against them because of any allegation or any complaint or any FIR that may have been filed against them. Question to Arnab was, why didn't he go to the Bombay High Court or the jurisdictional sessions court in Bombay to file a 438 application? In Arnab's first case, which we are now talking about, it actually makes sense to invoke Article 32 because here we were not just talking about one FIR in Bombay, we were talking about multiple FIRs in certain other states. Therefore, the jurisdiction of the Bombay High Court could have been put under question, and for effectiveness, an Article 32 may be justified. But nonetheless, question that we need to ask is, why did the court give him 3 weeks of protection? The court could have merely said, "Yeah, we are giving you, let's say, a moderate amount of 1 week of protection. Within that 1 week, you ensure you go to the Bombay High Court, go back to the CRPC, open CRPC, go to section 438, file for an anticipatory bail as per the normal procedure, which every other person is subjected to, right? They should have asked him to do so, right? This is something that we need to keep in mind here because section 438 has written procedures as to how interim protection should be given when such an application is made. None of those issues which are highlighted in section 438 were asked by the Supreme Court before giving him these 3 weeks of interim protection, right? So, earlier, or normally, anticipatory bail applications are filed seeking interim protection from arrest. Now, an interim protection is being granted to file anticipatory bail, and that to an interim protection for an unreasonable period of 3 weeks. While that interim protection actually should be taking place under Section 438 proceedings. All right. So that's something that we need to keep in mind. About the other aspect of as the court, as I said, as the court rejected the prayer for watching the FIRs, the court did the right thing. But then again, the question is, there was an effective remedy again in the CRPC to get FIRs watched, which is section 482 of the CRPC. You can file a petition before the High Court and get your FIR quashed if you believe that the FIR is false or frivolous or filed with an intention to maliciously prosecute you, right? I'll come to talking about section 482 and the possibility for quashing under the CRPC little sooner in the video. But before doing that, let me talk about Arnab's second writ petition under Article 32, which is equally relevant and which, in fact, is slightly more problematic than the Supreme Court's order in his first writ petition. So, after a week of the Supreme Court order in Arnab's first writ petition, which was on April 24th, another FIR was filed against Arnab Goswami on a separate cause of action on May 2nd in a police station in Bombay itself. This FIR was filed by one Mr. Irfan Sheikh, who is the secretary of the Raza Educational Welfare Society, alleging that his channel Republic TV, through one of their primetime shows, communalized the incident of the large gathering of migrants at Bandra station on April 14th. Where the news channel claimed that they are, the migrants are mere actors, who have been placed there by certain anti-national elements. All right. Arnab once again filed an Article 32 this time to challenge these FIRs. Not these FIRs, sorry. To challenge the sole FIR filed in Bombay. Harish Salve this time represented him before the Supreme Court. Salve had two prayers, first of all, two primary prayers. First is get the FIR quashed, as well as give an anticipatory bail to protect Arnab Goswami from an immediate arrest on this second FIR. Mind you, unlike the first writ petition, in this case, there are no multiple FIRs filed across more than one state. It was a sole FIR in this particular home state of Bombay, sorry, in Maharashtra, right? In this case as well, on May 11th, when the hearing took place, interim order by the Supreme Court, again the same bench, Justice Dhananjay Chandrachud and Justice M.R. Shah, gave him further interim protection from arrest and reserved the judgment of the court, where they will now talk about whether he deserves a final anticipatory bail that needs to be given under Article 32. And also another request came sort of in an ad hoc manner while the oral proceedings were happening in this particular matter, that Harish Salve requested for a change in the investigation agency as far as this FIR is concerned. Anyway, I'm not talking about that. Let's wait for the Supreme Court's order to come, hopefully soon. Right? So during the oral hearing in this particular matter, in the second writ petition, Justice Chandrachud had remarked, as per the reporting of Live Law and certain other Twitter accounts, Justice Chandrachud had remarked that all what Mr. Salve is talking about and asking for can be made before a High Court under the CRPC, under Section 438 as well as Section 482. But despite these oral remarks which the judge gave, nothing happened in the final order, sorry, in the interim order that the court passed. Right? If the court agrees that all of this can be dealt under 438 CRPC, then why the hell did you give an interim protection even further? Well, you have already given him interim protection in one another case, right? So this is something that we need to keep in mind. Now, one thing that happened very preposterously in this particular matter was the judgment that the court gave, or the interim order that the court passed in its first writ petition on April 24th. The court in the second writ petition sort of did something by extending that 24th April wala order itself. So essentially what the court did was to club these two cases together. Mind you, the first FIRs against Arnab Goswami was for a different issue and a different incident. That was about a show that he did on the Palghar lynching incident. The second FIR filed against him was about a different issue on his comments on the migrants, gathering and congregating near the Bandra station in April sometime, right? So that's something that happened preposterously. How can you club two different FIRs which are completely different on the basis of different causes of action, and you are giving similar protection, the same protection with regard to the two different cases? And it's a matter of core criminal law procedural issue that every case against against the same petitioner, two different cases against the same petitioner ought to be treated differently, especially as far as anticipatory bail aspects are concerned. If you are given an anticipatory bail in one case, doesn't mean that you cannot be arrested in a different case, right? Because you need to then file a different anticipatory bail for that different case. The logic behind this is because every case is different. The facts and circumstances of every case is different. Therefore, the logic of giving bail or not giving bail will also differ depending on the cases that have been filed against you, right? And also, Justice Chandrachud made a remark during the oral hearings that we may give the liberty for you to move the Bombay High Court. Now, who are you to give the liberty? 438 is not dependent upon the Supreme Court's liberty. Anybody can file that, at their own instance, right? Now, the larger point is Arnab Goswami in the second matter, when there was only one FIR filed against him in the home state, which is Maharashtra, he should have instead approached the Bombay High Court under Section 482 CRPC read with Section 438 CRPC, where he could have asked for both these remedies effectively, which is get that FIR quashed plus give him an interim anticipatory bail, right? Now, people may sort of argue that the reason why he went to Article 32 was that he also had another prayer, which is to change the investigation agency. My point is, your primary consideration that this FIR is false and frivolous, right? Then your primary prayer should be that it should be quashed. First, try for that. If it gets quashed, then what's the point of asking for a change in investigation agency? Now, let's assume that the Bombay High Court never granted you that prayer of quashing your FIR. Then you can file a Article 32 if you want, saying that the investigation agency should be changed. Now, what's happening essentially here is you file one single Article 32 in that you are mixing everything and anything without giving any heed to what's happening in the statutes which specifically regulate the proceedings against you. All right. So that's something that we need to keep in mind. Quickly moving to Prashant Bhushan's case, similar to Arnab's second writ petition. So similarly, one FIR was filed against Prashant Bhushan in Gujarat, uh, based on some of the critical comments that he made against Union Minister Prakash Javadekar. You know, on March 28th, if you follow Prashant Bhushan on Twitter, you would have seen it. On March 20th, he posted a tweet against Mr. Javadekar. What he said was, Javadekar had posted a photo of him watching Ramayana and Mahabharat on DD television, saying, praising about Ramayana and Mahabharat. Prashant Bhushan commented on that by saying that, when crores are starving and, migrants are walking hundreds of miles due to the lockdown, our heartless ministers are celebrating and consuming and feeding the opium of Ramayana to the people. So, anyway, I'm not commenting on the tastefulness of the tweet. Anyway, alleging that the tweet amounted to hurting religious sentiments. One Mr. I think Jaydev Rajnikant lodged an FIR on April 12th at a police station in Rajkot in Gujarat under Section 295A Indian Penal Code, stating that Mr. Bhushan hurt the religious sentiments of Hindus who followed Ramayana and Mahabharata by using foul languages like opium in association with these mythological texts. All right. In return, Prashant Bhushan filed a writ petition on April 30th. Like in Arnab's case, the matter got immediately listed for the next day before a bench of Justice Ashok Bhushan and Sanjeev Khanna. On May 1st itself, the matter got heard. The bench of Justice Ashok Bhushan and Sanjeev Khanna granted, similar to Arnab's case, granted interim protection to Prashant Bhushan from arrest and posted the matter for the next hearing after 2 weeks. Issued notice to the Gujarat government as well. This is similar, exact procedurally, this is exactly similar to Arnab's second case. Similarities: one FIR alone, filed in the one state alone. If the territory is restricted in that sense, then their appropriate court should have been, in Prashant Bhushan's case, the Gujarat High Court. In Arnab's case, the Bombay High Court. Both of them ought to have filed, as I earlier said, a petition under Section 482 CRPC, read with Section 438 CRPC, ask for these remedies of getting the FIR quashed. And I agree that these FIRs are quite, redundant and, frivolous. Doesn't really hold up a real case against these two. I'm not on the merits of the case. I'm on the jurisdiction which they invoke to get their remedy appropriately. They should have filed it under the respective high courts of Gujarat and Bombay using the CRPC measures. All right. So, very importantly, that we need to understand how successful entertainment of Article 32 by the Supreme Court for such issues which are directly and specifically regulated by the CRPC, in fact, only dilutes the importance of the trial courts and the high courts and the CRPC remedies. And this leads to a docket explosion of the Supreme Court, right? Now, if this has been done for these two persons, then ideally speaking, then the Supreme Court should be lenient on this regard for everyone. But that is unlikely to happen, and that shouldn't happen. I'll point out a case from the past, which will directly tell us why the Prashant Bhushan petition under 32 and the Arnab Goswami's second writ petition under 32 should never have been entertained. The case that I'm referring to is State of Haryana versus Bhajanlal, a 1992 Supreme Court decision. Any student of criminal law and every practitioner of criminal law would definitely know about the importance of this case. One of the, if you take a record of the citation strength of every Supreme Court case, this case has been cited, the most number of times, if not the highest number of times, but somewhere in the top five. In this particular case, Bhajanlal, who was a formidable leader in the Congress party back then, several one FIR was filed against him for several corruption allegations. He got irritated by that. He filed a 482 CRPC before the Punjab and Haryana High Court to get that FIR quashed. The Punjab and Haryana High Court quashed the FIR. Then the state of Haryana went in appeal against that to the Supreme Court. In appeal, not a writ petition. Of course, they can't file a writ petition against a High Court judgment. But understand, Bhajanlal did not directly file an Article 32. Bhajanlal went to the High Court, his parent High Court, where the FIR was filed. And he got the remedy. Of course, that was later quashed and reversed by the Supreme Court. But that's not the point. The point is, what do you do when you have certain specific and effective alternate remedies in the statute that directly regulates? Then you don't use constitutional remedies. We have something effective here, right? In in none of these cases against Arnab or Prashant Bhushan, cases like Bhajanlal nor any serious discussions of 438 or 482 were done by the Supreme Court benches of, in Arnab's case, Justice Chandrachud and M.R. Shah, and in Prashant Bhushan's case, Justice Ashok Bhushan and Justice Sanjeev Khanna. None of these benches entertained any serious discussions on criminal procedural law and its practices and the precedents like Bhajanlal. One more recent case, if Bhajanlal was from the past, a recent case, 2 days back. Similar to Arnab's and Prashant Bhushan's case, on May 2nd itself, an FIR was registered against the chairperson of the Delhi Minorities Commission, Dr. Zafarul Islam Khan. FIR was filed by the Delhi police on the receipt of a complaint against Dr. Zafarul because he had posted another tweet highlighting, how Muslims were targeted in India by the bigots, and he expressed his thanks to the country of Kuwait for expressing international concern on the issue of the treatment of Muslim minorities in India. Anyway, FIR was filed against him because of this tweet or certain other tweets along with this for the offenses of sedition, as well as several offenses like Section 295A and 153A in the Indian Penal Code for promoting religious animosity and enmity within the communities in India. In return of that, again, the similarities, only one FIR against him in Delhi, like one FIR against Prashant Bhushan in Gujarat. Dr. Zafarul filed an article, Dr. Zafarul filed a Section 438 application for anticipatory bail under the CRPC before the Delhi High Court, seeking an anticipatory bail in this matter. He alleged that the FIR is malafide, misconceived, and is based on a misrepresentation of facts and tweaking of facts. He asked for the same remedy as Prashant Bhushan and Arnab of getting anticipatory bail and interim protection from arrest. Right? So the petitioner in this particular case, and on May 12th, the Delhi High Court, that is 2 days before, the Delhi High Court granted him interim protection until the next date for hearing, when the public prosecutor has been given a chance to respond to his anticipatory bail application. Right? This is exactly what Arnab and Prashant Bhushan ought to have done respectively before the Gujarat and the Bombay High Court. Instead, what was the difference in their situation to directly go to under Article 32? Mind you, Article 32 is supposed to be enforced when you don't have anything effective below it. All right. Now, mind you, when I'm talking about Section 438 being an effective remedy, under the CRPC for getting the same remedies that they had asked for under Article 32. Several cases on anticipatory bail in the past have said that, Section 438 is not to protect any other mere statutory right. It is the remedy under 438 is based on fundamental rights under Article 21, which is the same basis under for Article 32. So just because it is under 438 in a statute and not in a fancy constitution doesn't mean that it is less effective, right? So they should have filed under 438, read with section 482 CRPC. Let me express a very personal, disappointment that, for Prashant Bhushan, senior advocate Dushyant Dave appeared on behalf of him, and Dushyant Dave for me is I admire him a lot for the righteousness that he expresses in his conduct as a lawyer. But this time I don't know on what basis he advised Prashant Bhushan, an equally efficient senior advocate, that they should have gone under 32. Did they go under 32 for a political reason to show that, if Arnab can get a 32 entertained for a similar matter, I should also get my 32 entertained? Anyway, I don't know about it. But let me, try to end this video quickly by, pointing out another another incident from the recent few days, which clearly is a stark example to show about the unequalness in the access to justice. On May 11th, mind you the dates, on May 11th, that is the same date when the Supreme Court bench of Justice D.Y. Chandrachud and M.R. Shah gave further interim protection for Arnab Goswami and did not direct Arnab Goswami to go to the Bombay High Court uh, through the CRPC. On the same day itself, on May 11th, the same bench of Justice Chandrachud and Justice M.R. Shah dismissed another Article 32 petition filed by one Mrs. Ishma Arora, who is in custody, who prayed for getting a bail under Article 32. That's preposterous, because she should have gone under Article 226 in the High Court, or under Section 437 CRPC or 439 CRPC. Instead, she went under Article 32. And the Supreme Court rightly denied her Article 32 petition by saying that they cannot invoke Article 32 to grant bail, because there are alternate remedies which are available for the petitioner to invoke before the trial court or the High Court as per the CRPC. Why didn't they do the similar thing? Why didn't they pass a similar order against Arnab Goswami or Prashant Bhushan? This is a scenario where we are talking about Ishma Arora, who is already in custody, who has already been arrested, whose liberty has already been curtailed. We don't know whether it's been legally curtailed or it's illegal, but that's what you decide in a bail application, to give you bail. In Arnab's case and Prashant Bhushan's case, they have not yet been arrested. Their liberty has not yet been infringed. But still, the Supreme Court deemed it as matters of emergency and urgency. Mind you, we are in COVID-19 lockdown time, where what is urgent is a very serious issue. You have not yet been arrested, still your anticipatory bail application is being entertained under Article 32, despite having 438 and 482 in the CRPC. This is the stark example of unequal access to justice that is prevalent in the Indian justice system, and it's not just relevant for the criminal justice system. I'll finally end this video by pointing out this statement of a former American legislator, one Mr. John Dingell. He once remarked in one of his parliamentary contexts over there in America to another legislator that I'll let you write the substance and you let me write the procedure. I'll screw you every time. The sentiment behind this is, because if procedure is not meticulously followed and is not made certain and objective so that it applies equally to everyone, if that is not the case, then even if you have the most substantive rights on your side in your favor, you will get screwed. The unequal application of procedure, the last thing that a system wants to entertain, and that seems to be happening in today's criminal justice system in India. So that's all from my side. Thank you, and I hope our legal system becomes more objective. Thank you.